All right, we're live. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning,
Dr. Kiltz
everyone.
is here.
Yeah, we got Kiltz and we got Nelson and Alia, and today we have Steve Stone today. I've got Kiltz Money Tribe just getting going, and we're grateful that Steve's here from Virginia and going to share his carnivore story with all of us. Dr. Nelson, you want to take it from here?
Good morning, everyone. It's 3 a.m. where I am, 6 a.m. Eastern Time, on Monday, June 9th. And we have Steve Stone with us to spend some time telling us about his vegan journey. I don't know if he was vegan, but his carnivore journey. So just why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? And before you do that, Alia, do we have a hashtag today?
Yeah, hashtag Steve for a chance to win Kiltz Health Electrolytes.
Stone. Hashtag Stone.
All right,
Yeah.
we're changing it. Hashtag Stone.
Stone.
All right, so hashtag Stone will get you Kiltz Health Electrolytes.
If you're the lucky winner, hashtag Stone. There we go. Here we go.
And we have a few links in the description. If you're near Boston and you're going to the Boston meetup, the link for the tickets are in the description. We'll be there in about 3 weeks. We just had the Seattle event. It was great with Healing Humanity. And we're doing that together in Boston again with Healing Humanity. So links in the show notes. Okay. All right. So Steve, go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us who you are, where you are, and why you're here sharing with us.
Sure. Like I said, I'm from Virginia. I'm in Roanoke, Virginia, kind of that southwest corner of the state, right over on the Appalachian Trail, Blue Ridge Parkway, in the mountains of Virginia. I'm 56 years old. Today is actually my birthday. I figured it'd be just great to come on that day. So 56 years old. I run operations for a medical device manufacturer. So high stress job. I've been in manufacturing all my life, lots of problem solving and, long hours and crazy work schedules and just, working any day of the week, all hours of the day, night, just whatever it takes to kind of get it done. A lot of people, a lot of things that I have to keep up with and manage. I'm an avid outdoorsman, been out in the wilderness areas and hunting, fishing, snow skiing, you name it. That was kind of my thing. And, it kind of works well with the carnivore diet when you can provide yourself with a lot of good, clean meat and all that type of stuff. My health journey probably started back in 2010 when my left arm went numb, progressively numb. And it just got worse. And to the point to where I'd seen a chiropractor. I went to my primary care and they threw me into the hospital doing MRIs, brain scans, neck scans, all kinds of different scans trying to figure out what was wrong with me. And the first diagnosis came back, a disorder called MNO, which is a neurological disorder, super aggressive. And basically the prognosis was nursing home within 2 years, diaper within less than a year, and spiraling out of control downhill neurological disorder. And, I'd always had a healthy skepticism on the medical community and started doing a ton of research on that side of things and came up with an alternate diagnosis that really my doctors and neurologists didn't want to look at, didn't even want to entertain because of the time of the year it was. And I wanted to be tested for West Nile encephalitis. And there was a whole list of things that I did the research on and kind of figured out, what else could it be other than this? And turned out that I had West Nile encephalitis. It had jumped the blood-brain barrier. I had lesions in the brain, spinal cord, all all the things you could think about going wrong in the central nervous system. They've been pushing all the immune suppressant drugs. If I would have taken them with an active infection, the West Nile would have probably taken me out of here. And so that, sent me down the rabbit holes of research and taking all the things that over the years of manufacturing, how you got to problem solve and go down those paths, and went in to see how could I fix this with diet? How could I heal? There was no treatments for West Nile. And, a lot of things was getting away from the processed foods more and getting into the whole foods. And just going down that thing, I had all the amalgam fillings taken out. I was, high stress job. I was a 6 Diet Coke a day person, maybe 7 Diet Cokes a day. And that aspartame's never good. I mean, if you read the whole story behind that, it takes you to some dark places. And, being told that I was going to be, in a wheelchair, debilitated, all that really got my outdoor interest. It's time to live now. It's time to get out west and do all these trips and just live life. And I also started marathon running. So I did, over a period of 5 years, I probably did 25, 30 marathons. And I learned a lot about my body. I also learned that you could never out exercise how much you could eat. And that was really, everybody's exercise. And when you're high carbohydrate, and the runners, that's all they are, is high carbohydrate, and you carb load, no matter what you do, you can still keep gaining weight. So I'm running marathons at 230, 240 pounds. The mental toughness was there. I could push my body to the breaking point, lots of inflammation, lots of problems. And, that went on throughout that, from 2010 when I was first diagnosed up, through 2020, 2022. As we get, more recent in this carnivore journey is more what we're here to talk about today. I just want to kind of set the stage with that thing back in the beginning. I found myself, in late 2022, early 23 at 255 pounds, about 20 pounds over what I normally ran. High blood pressure, just the high stress and all the inflammation, having to take different medications for high blood pressure, diagnosed with fatty liver, and, kind of a middle stage on the fatty liver. I was pre-diabetic, A1C of 6.4. Inflammation. I used to have all kinds of inflammation in the fingers, in the toes, feet, joints. And, the brain fog, I never felt I was as sharp, when you have lesions in the brain from an event like West Nile, just from 2010. I always felt I lost a little bit of something in that type of, just with what was going on there. And there's one particular photo that was taken in late 2022 that it just really bothered me. I could just see my stomach hanging over my belt, and I just couldn't do it anymore. And I was used to always being kind of a bigger guy, but being very active, just, backpack training for all kinds of activities, but still, but just being at that heavier weight and doing it, and not, never the person to sit around, always active, always doing something. And I had been listening to a lot of Jordan Peterson and Michaela Peterson, and those folks were really got me thinking about all the autoimmune stuff that I'd learned, and just their journeys on carnivore and the weight loss and the things that happened there. And probably that next thing was Ken Berry after that. I mean, those were really the first 3 influencers that sent me down the carnivore path. And that was kind of the beginning. I'll roll the clock forward to right now. I'm 182 pounds down from 255. So, from a muscle mass percentage, I'm running like 39.3%. Body fat's around 22% at this point. Still a little bit to go there. My A1C has dropped from 6.4 to 5.4. Blood pressure medicine, I've been off of that since, for the last 2 years now, I've been off of that. One of the more recent things that changed was my vision. I had 2400 vision all my childhood life. had PRK LASIK done back in the 90s, and got it to 20/20 then it went to 20/40, 20/100, where it's been the last 15 years. And in the last 6 months, now I have 20/20 vision. Just the mental acuity, and in my job, it's very demanding. And I feel like the healing that's happened from all the damage that I had has just been pretty amazing, and energy level through the roof. That's kind of the, where I am today, compared to where I was. And this has, been what, 20, it's been almost 2.5 years on carnivore. And really my carnivore has about two main stories. I have that from 255 to 200. I lost that weight in 6 months. And then I stayed there, and I was really plateaued for a long time. And my A1C started creeping back up, probably because what got me from 255 to 200, what I needed to maintain. And to kind of take that next step, it was really changing up how I ate, timing of ate, what I was doing to drop it back down. And it was relearning it. I thought I had it figured out, 2 years in, and I'm seeing numbers going the wrong way. And I was able to, really figure out and dial in and get that last bit of weight off of me. So, I mean, that's kind of the very short version. We can go into a lot of detail on all, any of the different things. I just want to put that out there for everyone.
We started our journey about the same time. I went carnivore 6 months later, so this month going to be 2 years, but 2.5 years was when I started my own journey. Can you repeat your neurological diagnosis again? You
Sure.
mentioned
It's a disorder. MNO is the acronym for it, and it's MNO.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
But
so
all right, so
it's
MNO
like super
affects
aggressive.
the O stands for optica, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
It's like a super aggressive form of MS is what they diagnosed me with originally. I mean, I had a lesion on the spinal cord from C4 to C7 that was taking out the usage of my left arm. I had lesions in the brain. And at this point, we just feel it was a misdiagnosis and the damage was from the West Nile encephalitis, which, only in 1% of the people does it jump the blood-brain barrier and kind of get into the brain and wreak havoc. But one of the things is once it does that, you're very potentially prone to autoimmune, something like MS coming back around, because you've had all those antibodies where they shouldn't be in the brain doing things, and that's what's friend or foe when the antibodies are in there attacking things. And that was kind of that beginning of my health journey of doing the research, reading everything, learning that doctors really didn't have the answers on those autoimmune diseases. They had a lot of very expensive $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 a year medications that had a very low effective rate. And you knew that they were going to damage you. You knew they were going to damage your liver. You knew that things were going to happen bad based on those drugs that were so super expensive and unproven and unknown. So that I tried to do it whole foods, and we really didn't know what I had to begin with. But we know that I had an active West Nile infection in the brain at one point.
Did they ever treat you with antivirals?
Yes, they did. Yes, they did. I don't recall the names of them, but there were several antivirals in the beginning. I mean, basically, the neurologist was telling me your body's got to beat this thing pretty much, or it's all supportive therapy. Not really, we'll throw some antivirals at it and hope for the best. So, but it was about nutrition at that point. I really wish I would have known carnivore then. I was born in the late 60s, the kid of the 70s and teenager of the 80s. I had enough connection to my grandparents on my mom's side that lived the farm life, that had the whole foods, that had the chickens and the pigs and the lard on the table and that type of stuff. And I saw what healthy aging was when they lived to their late 80s, early 90s. And on my dad's side of the family, I saw what alcoholism, sugar addiction, diabetes, all those things can do to you, and how that shortened your life. For my grandparents lived into their 60s, much less, almost 90 on my mom's side. So, I did have that kind of in the background of seeing different lifestyles and how they turn out. I always sugar challenged through the years, always ran right on the borderline of all the A1C numbers and that type of thing. And just, your regular general practitioner is so busy that they just, say, oh yeah, you just watch what you eat and on to the next patient type of thing. So, but
we all watch what we eat, I guess.
Yeah.
We look at it.
So what did you find? So you're healed from West Nile virus.
Yes.
So ultimately, what was the cause of all your symptoms?
I mean, it was the neurological symptoms was the virus attacking the myelin sheath in the brain, or the antibodies that were sent in there to kill the virus attacking the myelin sheath within the central nervous system. I mean, that was kind of that piece of the puzzle from my understanding of what it was.
It's another autoimmune neurodegenerative. It's rare, and
or is it more common than we know, but we don't test it?
Right.
Maybe. Well, ultimately, but you're better on carnivore, right?
Oh, most definitely. Most definitely.
So
I mean, we're talking a fair. I mean, we're talking 2010 timeframes when that first hit me, and I really kind of healed from that with whole foods and getting away from all the aspartame and all the bad stuff that I was doing then. I think I never got back until carnivore, the acuity that was lost, with the mental brain fog and that type of stuff, until the last 2.5 years. I mean, I think that was.
Do you have any residual symptoms right now that you think are still lingering, or are you asymptomatic?
I'm asymptomatic at this point. I had some final pins and needles in the left arm fingertips just from the nerve damage, and that is 100% gone. That was probably that was still there when I started carnivore. Then that's definitely gone now. I don't have none of those like electrical shock impulse type thing happening in my left arm like I would in the past.
And what do the doctors say?
I had in the beginning, I had a neurologist that I did not think much of, and the original diagnosis, and would not test me for alternate stuff. He was convinced that this was, and it was a super rare thing, and he had it right. And then I, got a really good neurologist. He was supportive throughout the whole thing, and he's retired now. And I even see him, post his retirement. We've had that good of a relationship, and that's one of those medical fields where most of your patients are going to go downhill rapidly, and to have one come out the other side is not the usual outcome in that neurology space. So I've been able to kind of maintain that relationship there, and have a lot of support through the years, and to stay off those autoimmune drugs and just the known side effects of that type of stuff. So, but carnivore now, I don't want to spend too much time down the neurological path and talk about more of the healing that I've done, and the metabolic healing that I've done more recently. As I stated, I went from that, my normal weight had been 235, long periods of time, lots of training and that stuff with that weight. And I'd swelled up to 255 and made those changes, and dropped to 200 pounds. And, what I was eating during that was probably 2.5, 3 pounds of meat a day. Kind of the Ken Berry, eat till you're full. I tried to eat the fattier meat. I was eating the ribeyes. I was eating some pork belly. I was eating, just there's some whole eggs there and a little bit of cheese. And, once I got to 200, I'd really just stopped. My A1Cs had improved. But as time went on through that, I went, continuing having blood work every 90 days, looking at things. And I noticed my A1C started creeping back up again. I'm thinking, what is going on here? So the first thing I thought was, well, I'll go from 3 meals a day to 2 meals a day. And I stopped eating at 6 a.m. in the morning. I started eating noon and 6 p.m. and thinking, I'm going to shrink that meal timing. 18-6 basically is where I was going with that. And I did that for 6 months, and I went back, and my A1C had gotten worse. And so, where I really thought I had this thing beat, that insulin resistance that I'd had all those years was kind of rearing its ugly head again, saying, okay, I'm 100% carnivore. And I had a period of time to where what I was eating was really working, and it had dropped the A1C, and here it is going up again. I'm like, is the test wrong? What am I doing wrong? I'm doing an 18-6 meal timing, and it's still not there. And, that kind of sent me down a little bit different path of figuring out what's going on. And where I said my first 3 people that I really looked to and that was influenced by was, the Petersons and then Dr. Berry. That sent me looking again. And then this next kind of round is when I found Candy Frazier and all the talk that she talks about the CGM and her husband's diabetic journey. And then I stumbled upon Dr. Kiltz. And, I kind of took something away from each person. With Candy, it was the CGM. It was the understanding the insulin, the meal timing. With Dr. Kiltz, it's eat the fat and fasting. And fasting has really been a big part of fixing what's going on with me. And getting into, the Dr. Kiltz website and everything there, and seeing the community of, with Papa Carnivore Peter. Shout out to you and the way you encourage everybody and bring them into this community. And another person at Charger Mopar Rick, talking about his stories with the ducks and the iguanas and all the animals. As you look around where I'm
he's
at.
He's here listening, by the way. He's here listening.
Yeah,
wow, look at that.
I have quite a collection in here of animals. Wow. And where I've hunted all over, and we can talk about the meat and the animal processing and really going from field to table. People talk about that all the time, but when you can do it yourself and you can process your own meat and do those type of things, that's something to talk about. And then, Dr. Sean Baker and the Rivero and kind of that group there, and Ben Bickman, the Metabolic Classroom. So those are the folks I started listening to January of this year, December, January. And by wearing that CGM, I was able to figure out that, what was happening when I was eating that 6 p.m. meal and the amount I was eating, my blood sugar was staying 105 all night long. I mean, my lowest was 105. And then I had a dawn effect every morning, and it would start rising, 4:30 a.m. before I got up, and stay high all day. And this was on 100% meat. And while this was really working before, it was that insulin resistance can really come back on you at time. And so I started playing with the timing, and really what I settled in on was 1 meal a day at 5:30 a.m. So the 5 o'clock lives were perfect. That was when I was getting up. I would be air frying everything, listening and cooking and getting it. And it was also reducing the amount I ate, but changing up what I ate. And, the game meat is very lean. And as Dr. Kiltz always says, you got to eat the fat. You got to eat the fat. And that was always my conundrum. I had access to all this meat, was it moose or caribou or venison that, was in my backyard all the time. I really couldn't utilize it fully. And until I found a really good source of beef fat. So one of the things that I will do, I'll have 18 to 20 ounces of lean game meat, and I'll cook up 10, 12 ounces of beef fat. And I'm just able to supplement the lean meat with the fat. And, even I can adjust that fat level. Every ounce of fat is 247 calories. So I know if it's supposed to be a super active day, a couple more ounces of fat. It's going to be a little more moderate day, a little less fat. And then once I got on that one meal a day, I got on the fat protein ratios. What I would notice is, the first month I did that, I dropped my 24-hour average on my CGM to like 94. My peak blood sugars at any time during the day are 115. Really controlling those things metabolically, and that went on really good for about 5 weeks, and then it started creeping up, and it crept up a little bit more the next week, and a little bit more the next week. And I was traveling. I was going to Nashville for a show, and I knew it was going to be super expensive to eat carnivore. And I kept hearing Kiltz saying fasting, fasting, fasting. So I did my first 48-hour fast. And that really reset the floor on my numbers. I came off the fast. I was right back where I was when I went to that one meal a day, that fat protein ratio that I was looking at. And what I've come to learn is about, for me, the first week after the fast is my best blood sugars. And then they rise ever so slightly the following week. And then the third week, they'll rise a little more. The fourth week, they'll rise a little more. Boom, you hit it with the fast, resets the floor. And so I'm on that once a month. I'll do a 48-hour fast. It resets my metabolism. And then it just starts over, and the A1Cs. And while I wasn't trying to lose any weight, I kind of felt like 200 pounds was where I wanted to be. But my body fat percentages were still really high. And I never had analyzed them that much as I've done since then. But I started dropping weight again, where I've been very stable for all that time. From 255 was to 200 was just rocketing down, and then 18 months to 2 years just sitting right there at 200. Then that last bit I unlocked 15, 17 more pounds, and got metabolically more healthy in the end. But it was really learning the body and using that dawn effect to my advantage. Like, if my insulin's going to rise in the morning, let's give it some food so it can digest it. Let's put it to work when it wants to work, and let's fast the rest of the day. And I can regulate my how much energy I need for the day based on the beef fat. And then I can utilize all this game meat. People underutilize the amount of venison that's available, especially if you live in the Midwest or the Southeast. There's just a ton of game meat that you can have access to. Even if you don't hunt, there's hunters out there that just can't find people to take it. And you can befriend a hunter, and you can become one yourself, or befriend one. Or if you have land, you can let somebody on your land to hunt and trade for the game meat. There's just so much of the natural meat that you can get. I do a lot of trips. I train with my backpack. I go to Alaska every year. I get into the wilderness areas. I've done all the adventures like that, and there's just something, it's hard to get more primal than hunting, butchering, cooking, and eating, it all the way through the process. You see every side of it.
So the fat is really the most important part of the animal to eat. And one of our biggest problems is nobody's eating fat. And I see so many carnivores that are they're cooking the meat. And remember, when you cook meat, the fat is rendered and lost in so many cases. So what about raw meat? And where are you at on raw meat and fat?
I I use the air fryer, and my normal routine, and what I like about it so much is I'll set the timer on it and I'll throw it in, and I'm starting to pull the beef fat out after 1 or 2 minutes, just a little bit, just barely crisping the outsides of it. I'll start pulling it out. I don't try not to render much down at all. If I render a lot of it, I view that as I left it in too long. So I'm trying to just warm it up more than anything, maybe kill any of the bacteria that could be on the outside. And as far as the meat, I've been listening to your Black and Blue, and I've really been trending to singe it a little bit on the outside and Black and Blue on the inside. So
yeah, that's
I definitely see that.
Yeah, one of the things is that protein, low-fat diets are deadly for humans, and a plant protein low-fat diet is pretty much what most people eat. We eat a low-fat diet. Everyone says, "Oh, everyone's eating a high-fat diet." No way. And ultimately, fat is raw fat from an animal. Olive oil is not really fat. Coconut oil is not really fat. And ghee is not really fat either because it's been rendered. Now you're missing most of what the animal provided in the first place. I mean, think about it. What other animal eats cooked food?
None at all. Our dogs
None.
and cats, and you can see the health that their health journeys they're having now. So
They're suffering from, and ultimately, heroin, cocaine, marijuana, nicotine, caffeine come from plants, and we're eating a high plant-based diet. I mean, there's a simplicity to the hunter and the simplicity to what our ancient needs are. But we're sort of led down this road of complexity and trying to sort of manage it in a modern world, which isn't so simple, especially with all of us crazies out there sharing stories, right? And ultimately raw. I mean, when you kill the animal, is there any part of it that you eat after you kill it quickly?
yeah, I mean we're in the field. We will fix up the heart and the liver. I mean, that's one of the first things. I was on 2 different caribou hunts last year, and within the first 2 hours, we're eating heart and liver. We'll also that first day we're working on the tenderloin. The caribou is like the perfect animal, and the fat on the caribou is really, really good. I mean, the Inuits, they eat it raw. I mean, that's the way they eat their caribou. And even the muskox, like I've been up in Greenland, and caribou and muskox in Greenland, and that whole Inuit culture is all about the raw meat, because I mean they never have the vegetables, they never had that, and they know to get full nutrition, that's the way that they're going to eat it. But that is just one of those animals that's kind of, I think, works very well that way. And the caribou fat is the best fat of any of the game meat.
And fat is best eaten raw. And that's because once you cook it, you've rendered it, and you've damaged the molecules and the minerals and the vitamins that they say we need, but we're cooking and damaging all of our food. It's kind of like burning your house and then going in and living in it. It's still standing, but it's been, burned to the crisp inside. And that's why the raw meat is good to eat, but cooked and raw plants are deadly to eat, which is, kind of a really very much opposite what we're taught, right? They tell us raw plants and cooked meat.
Exactly. And one of the things with the beef fat that I'm getting, so there's a farm, probably 45 minutes for where I'm at, and they got a really good website, and you can order stuff. The farmer brings it to town, delivers it to everyone, and I'm buying every bit of beef fat I can get from him at this point. And I buy it in 4-pound blocks. I break it up, cut it up, 10, 12 ounce packs. And then every day I just pull out a pack, 10 or 12 ounces. How much energy do I need for the day? Okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to take 12 ounces today. Oh, I'm going to do a little less. I need 9 ounces today. I just kind of balance that energy level on that fat. And I know I'm getting it. I mean, before it was just so hard to get the fat without intentionally just buying the fat. And then it let me use all the game meat. Because I mean, in Virginia, we in private land in Virginia, you can take about as many whitetail deer as you could. I mean, the limit's over 100 deer, right? So it's an unbelievable supply of venison meat if you had the time or the places to do it. And I can buy beef fat for $4 a pound, and venison's, I just got to find it available. I just got to put time in nature and get it. And I have very little cost in eating. I mean, I can eat probably just about cheaper than anybody beef fat and venison out of the backyard. So,
so what's the longest in fasting, and how often do you fast?
I'm fasting every 4 weeks. And my longest fast is 48 hours. I've not tried to go longer, and that just seems to be my monthly reset. It's really like clockwork. The first week after a fast, my blood sugars at night are right on 70 all night long, and then and my 24-hour averages are in the 90s. And then the week after that, it'll be 75 as my fasting, my lowest. And the week after that, it's 80, and it'll just creep up, and then boom, do another fast, and it lowers the floor. And if the floor is lower, the ceiling is going to be lower. The spikes are going to be less. So I think I was metabolically not healthy for a very, very long time. I've always, been one of those people with skin tags and all that stuff. I can remember, as a teenager having that stuff, and that's just a sign of insulin resistance. And it's something that's there. And I think I've done a ton to heal it and keep it at bay. But, the too much protein, I think was one of my problems, and when you're 255 pounds and you're carrying around all that extra weight, you have more muscle to do that. You need more energy. You're 180 some pounds. You're a different person than you were. And what worked stopped working in some ways because I didn't adjust the amounts. I didn't adjust the protein. I didn't adjust the things down and get back to what I needed today.
I think the biggest problem is low fat and eating too frequently. And we're really built to go days and weeks without food. That's the crazy concept. And I know when I don't eat for a week and I'm doing my regular stuff every day, I do my hour walking, I go to work, do everything I do every other day that I eat, I still have plenty of energy. And I imagine hunting with a spear or a rock or a bow and arrow, and not a modern bow and arrow, right? Well, how easy would that be to hunt those animals and take them down?
I mean, it takes a lot of skill and a lot of time and dedication. It's not something that's going to happen every day, right? I mean,
and so if you're hunting for your family in an environment where you're relied on, it may take you a week or two potentially to bring home the meat.
No doubt.
And
I think
go.
If we look at how a lot of the bison and how the bison were harvested over time throughout the Native American cultures, and how the teamwork that they used to do different things to be able to harvest the bison and how important that food source was to them over the years, and look what the standard American diet's done into that community. A lot of things I've hunted all over North America. I've been from as far as you can go north in Alaska to as far west you can go on Adak Island to Newfoundland and Greenland and all these places, and see all these different cultures and take a step back in time in some of these very remote areas and see what they eat there, right? And it is all animal based, and if they veer from that, they didn't have the the European influence of how we've been tolerating those plants and things for the last 5,000-10,000 years or whatever, however you want to look at it. These other areas, they have a lot less with that, and the plants are way more. They're bad for us, and they're way more devastating for them as well.
Dr. Kiltz, we have some questions for Steve. I'm going to take some of those. Let's see. Or actually, this one's for Dr. Nelson or you. 8 months line diet, homocysteine levels 25. Why so high? The reference range is 4 to 15. Any insights, Dr. Nelson?
I don't know if they have been tested for the MTHFR mutation. That could be an explanation.
How's your hemoglobin A1C? How you feeling? What are the things that are going on, right? Could be?
Body levels, B12 levels, have they been checked?
Modern medicine tests things, and then you worry about it not falling into the range that they say you should be in. Is that also part of the problem that you got to get back to, or what are you suffering from? Because testing is all really related to diagnostic tools for diseases. And have we really proven that annual exams prevent disease? Or diagnostic testing prevents disease? Dr. Nelson, what are your thoughts?
Well, I do like testing a little bit more than you do.
We like it because that's been our habit.
Yeah.
And because we're trained that way.
But if you want to find out about this particular elevation in homocysteine, you probably need to have more information, which we just went through a few things that we would like to know at least. And if you do have a mutation, it might be resolved by just taking a methylated folate, vitamin B12, and other B vitamins that you might not be absorbing, but
butter or fat. Yeah, I don't know. I still think all these diagnostic testing are really related to our standard world of medicine and diet. And, I don't know where it falls in our carnivore lifestyle, in my opinion, but, we do a test and then we worry about the reasons. And that leads us to another doctor and another diagnostic test that may be interventional or lead to a drug that also has side effects, rather than I'm healthy and well and I feel fine.
Yeah. Also, there are multiple medications that interfere with the absorption of vitamin B12 and other B vitamins. So sometimes it might be as simple as, you're using certain medications, not that something is wrong with you.
There you go. Next question. I believe you already answered this, Steve. What's your favorite meat?
Well, it's probably the hardest one. Well, it's between the wild sheep and the muskox of the game meats. So if you're talking game meats, those are the top two, just really what they eat, all the different lichens and the grasses in that, northern, very northern remote areas. Those are probably the best game meat. Elk is really good. That's something that's much more available for folks. Caribou is good and available. If we, the venison, venison gets a bad rap, and a lot of that's how it's handled. It's from the processing it all the way down. People have a tendency to they'll quarter an animal up. They'll throw it in garbage bags and throw it in the refrigerator. And the meat doesn't breathe. It sits in that plastic and it doesn't age well in that moisture-ridden environment versus curing it properly and going through this proper stage. And so venison can be good if handled properly. So many people don't handle it properly. But as far as if you get away from the game meats, it's hard to beat a really good bone-in ribeye. It's like the bone makes it better for whatever reason. Of all the things, I'd say that's probably my number one non game meat. And I'll probably eat game meat 4 days a week at this point, sometimes 5, and then other stuff other days. And I've also gotten into where I'll mix in a bunch of different things, and I'll have 10 ounces of caribou. I'll have six egg yolks. I'll have a piece of liver. I'll just mix it up, trying to get to my where I want to be on the amount of protein in that. I just kind of put a lot of different things together, and you use the game meat as one of the bases of what I'm eating.
Where do you get your fat trimmings? Because you buy beef trimmings, you said.
Yeah, it's from a farm called Truman Hill Farms. It's a farm here in Virginia, about an hour from me, and I order it from them. It comes in 4-pound blocks. Also, Earth Fare. I don't know how widespread that grocery store is. We have an Earth Fare here, and there's a little section in the cooler where they put all the beef trimmings and fat, and it's only $2.99 a pound. So there's probably me and 2 or 3 other carnivores that are fighting over what's ever left there. So that's since I don't eat at lunchtime, I go by the Earth Fare once or twice a week just to see what's in the markdown cooler. And also I do that and go over there. I have like a triggering thing. When I see the markdown ribeye, $7.99 a pound or something, I buy it all. Any that I don't have to have it because I have a base of what I'm eating these game meats, but I also shop for all the bargains. It's kind of my hobby now at lunch since I don't eat lunch. I got to get away from the craziness at work and free my mind for a moment. So I'll run down to the Earth Fare and shop the bargains down there at lunchtime and pick it up and throw it in the freezer at work so I can take it home later.
Nice. Josephine would like to know what moose tastes like, if you can explain that.
It's a kind of a very beefy beef. Some of it depends on the cut of the moose. A lot of times you're with roast and you're with those things. People, when they first go to grass-fed beef, they think it tastes kind of gamey or wild versus the corn beef. It's just it's maybe a little more iron taste to it than the other. Where caribou can tend to have a little bit of liver taste depending on the time of year and whether it's male or female caribou. The moose is real beefy. It's probably a little closer to bison as well.
Nice. Another one for Dr. Nelson or Dr. Kiltz. Miss Silver 41. Sure. Dr. Nelson, is it true long-term blood pressure meds cause erectile dysfunction and kidney disease?
So it is a frequent side effect of blood pressure medications, but ultimately one of the problems is you're not getting enough blood flow, number one, because the same processes that are happening in the arteries elsewhere also happen there. So some medications specifically may cause that, not all of them. And usually kidney disease, again, it comes along. I don't know that medications cause the kidney disease, or maybe you do have diabetes, prediabetes, and this is what's causing the damage in the kidney.
Would you say that most people on high blood pressure medications are still on a relative standard diet? And so
Yeah.
they may lower their blood pressure and think that they're healthy, where in fact the damage
is still happening. Yeah.
It's still happening. Is that right?
Yeah. And Steve, you were taking how many blood pressure medications?
I was just on one, a fairly high dose. Amlodipine.
Amlodipine?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
And you're not taking that anymore?
Not at all. My blood pressure is very controlled, very low. Yeah. I mean, it was 3 weeks on carnivore, and I had to stop the blood pressure medicine. It was that quick. So, the
Took-
question about the
it took-
beef fat.
took
this
me
is- this is-
seven-
this is-
Took me 7 or
Oh,
8 months
wow.
to get off blood pressure medication.
So this is the 4 pounds that I'll get from the farmer. So it's vacuum packed, Truman Hill Farms,
Yeah.
and it's just really
Nice.
good stuff. Just throw it on the counter for an hour and a half, let it thaw out a little bit, break it up, weigh it out 10 ounces, 12 ounces in a quart bag, throw it back in the freezer, and it's ready for the ready for a quick run through the air fryer in the morning.
I buy it from a Central Florida Spanish supermarket, which I'm the only one that used to buy it, and they throw it away. They give me for 99 cents. The last time they lowered it to 50 cents because they a pound. And one day I went to ask, and this butcher, he already knows what I got to buy, and he said, "Oh, you got competition. Someone else here came to buy some fat trimmings."
Yeah, I think that's at the Earth Fair here. There's 3 of us that go in there and kind of fight over that. They're $2.99 a pound, but the farmer here, he has it for me $4.99 a pound. It's well worth paying it to know I have it. I try to keep 90-day supply on hand at any time. That way, I'm not running around crazy looking for it. And these local farms are really driving good business these days with this whole carnivore and farm to table. So it's good. It's good for the small guy to be able to sell his goods. I see that question about the bear fat.
Yeah.
That's I haven't taken that many bears over a period of time. It's just not something I've taken a ton of. I've taken several. So I've never really been able to do a lot with it. I think the bear fat, which you hear about, a lot more utility in that versus eating per se. But next one, since I've been carnivore, I haven't taken a bear. So next time one presents itself, and again, I'm a good spot, we'll find out more.
But would you say in general, like a bear isn't really a common game for hunters that are really working to feed their families?
Yeah, it's such a it's in Virginia. We kill almost 180,000 whitetails and 3,000 bears, something like that. So it's just much less common that you're gonna have a bear, even an opportunity per se, even though their populations are going up, and well sustained. And there's a lot of use of that bear fat. I mean, the settlers use that bear fat. I mean, that you didn't have petroleum products, so you use that from anything you needed fat lubrication for, whether it was leather goods or keeping your gun from rusting or whatever it was, or lamps or that type of stuff. So a lot of utility in the bear fat. There's a real quick thing with Charger Mopar Rick. If you want to trade some iguana meat for some venison, hit me up and we can work something out. I need to try that iguana sometime.
Okay, here we go. Let's see. Next question. Lindsay, I know it's different for everyone, but is there a rule to follow on how much fat we need?
The way I found the wall is keep adding fat until the bathroom visit tells you you've had too much. If your weight's not going up and your stomach can handle it, that's kind of my rule of thumb, right? If I go past 10 or 12 ounces, I go to the bathroom fairly quickly. And if I was gaining weight, I'd cut the fat back a little bit. I mean, that's just how I got to my numbers.
WeWork Network asks a quick question. Can I host a meetup trying to create a compassionate carnivore homestead co-op? Anyone can host a meetup.
Everyone should host one. Absolutely.
Exactly.
Good idea.
Let's see. Stephanie Boyd, Dr. Kiltz, I agree with what you just said on the psychological effects of testing too much. How often do you test, if at all?
I sometimes get curious when I'm on a fast what some of my numbers look like. And my fasting glucose at 5 days is 45, and I feel fine. And I agree with Steve. I mean, essentially, the fasting allows your liver to lower glucose levels and the healing of the hepatocytes, because it's in the liver. The hepatocytes convert the sugars and amino acids to fat, not in your peripheral cells. So essentially what you're doing is you're healing the liver, because the liver cells are the most regenerative cells in the body, and they're the fastest. And ultimately, by fasting, we allow those hepatocytes to regenerate, heal, and so insulin has its effects on the liver.
Excellent. Okay, last few questions here because it's almost an hour already. Mamita
Wow.
Marie, how many pounds of meat are you able to eat? I struggle to eat 1.5 pounds. Hubby says I'm too skinny now. I told her to break up her meals and eat more and eat dairy if she's trying to gain weight. What do you guys say?
Add fat.
Add fat.
Add fat. Real fat.
Yes.
Yeah, here, I mean, it's just
And-
this stuff right here, right?
Eat it. Non-rendered. Non-rendered. Cut it up, dry it up, and chew it from time to time throughout the day. That's the snack. But really, the fat is the fuel. Polar bears go after ring seals because they're mostly fat.
Yeah, and if you look at the brown bears, they pull the salmon out of the creek. They rip the belly out of it. They eat the eggs. They eat the fat belly meat. And they throw the rest of the carcass that we'd pay big money for on the side of the bank. And you go to Alaska, you see that. You see these king salmon, sockeyes, all that meat we would die for sitting there on the bank, and they all they've eaten is the organs and the eggs in the belly.
Do they eat the
And
head?
nature knows. What was that?
Do they eat the head?
I've not seen them eat the head. No,
Got it.
not too much.
But
Yeah, they rip the belly, eat the organs, and eat the egg, the roe, and the belly. The salmon's got a real fat belly. They concentrate on the fat, move to the next one, eat that. They let the birds pick through the rest, or the smaller subordinate bears.
And the liver is part of the organs, because the liver is the fattiest organ of the body, because its job is to make fat. That is it. And without fat, none of those animals would survive their journeys, would they? Their migration, their hibernation.
No doubt.
When
That's
do you mostly hunt for these animals? What time of year for them?
The further north, some of the seasons will start late July, run through August, September. And you kind of, as the weather starts coming in the North Country, it will move you to the south. So, and like last year, I spent the last 2 weeks of August in the Northwest Territories above the Arctic Circle hunting moose and mountain caribou. Then in late September, I was in Adak Island, Alaska, out on the Aleutian Chain, hunting caribou out there. So you just kind of move to more southern areas, and then like Arizona. The best time to hunt Arizona is December and January, when when the weather's cooled off and it's still nice compared. So, but a lot of stuff is September, October, probably November for whitetails. That's your big months.
Last question, or let's go ahead and do.
We finished all the questions, so
All right, good.
let's do
Let's go ahead.
let's do it. Hashtag Stone while I'm getting this up. You got 1 second. There we
We'll
go.
just go ahead and do the
The giveaway. Here we go.
let's do it. Do it.
Drum roll, please. I'm gonna get this comment off of your face. Sorry, Doctor. Nope. Sorry, not happening. Redraw.
Okay, wait. Nope. Hold it. Leave it right there.
Doc Kiltz.
Leave it right there.
Yeah.
Leave it right there. Okay. And
Okay, I'm leaving it there. Yeah.
Hold on. Mary Ann Lemaster. Marianne Lemaster
Mer-
on Kiltz Mighty Tribe.
Great.
Marianne Lemaster, Kiltz Mighty Tribe, #Stone. She's the winner.
Yay, go Marianne Lemaster. Please email me, alia@drkiltz.com.
And would you
And I
look
will
on
get those
Kiltz
to
Mighty
you.
Tribe, Alia, for Marianne Lemaster?
Yeah.
L-E-M
Yeah, I will.
ASTR.
Yeah.
She's
Yes.
there. That's
I
why I
can
put
send her a
Dr.
message.
Kiltz, so that, and they're putting, so then I kind of go through it and choose the people that have done #Stone.
Oh, okay, awesome.
If anybody
That
was wondering
works.
what a muskox was, that's a muskox.
Yeah,
I love
nice.
that. Wait,
Lot
can you get the
of
front
fatty
end?
meat. A lot of fatty meat there. That's the best tasting game animal.
I
Nice.
I wonder where can I
Most
go
dogs.
and find venison in Florida, that besides me going to.
If you have an Earth Fair, they have it there. But I tell you, the best way is find one of your local hunters. And a lot of times during the peak season, the hunter wants to get back in the field and he doesn't want to fool with the meat. He shoots the deer. He tries to find somebody to give it to. So if you learn to process them, you can take them off their hands, because timing is everything during hunting, and you want to get your game and get back in the field, because there's certain times of the year that are great for it. So that's the best way to get venison. But you can buy it at the stores. They charge you an arm and a leg for it. But I can also send you down some, Dr. Nelson.
Thank you.
Listen, Steve, Dr. Nelson, Alia, thank you. You guys
Thank
are rock
you.
stars. I'll be on tonight. If you guys are there, great. If not, Alia, you're there with me tonight, at least?
I'll be there. Yes, absolutely.
And-
Ben Asadi today.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, Ben Asadi today.
Asadi.
Awesome. All right, I got to get my call. Steve, you're a rock star. We look forward to having you on some more. Keep sharing what you're
Bye.
doing. And bye, all.
Goodbye, everybody.
Yeah.